Inside Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. During this hour, we're going to take a look at healthcare in America. We're going to do that with Dr. Joseph Mascara, and we're going to find out his thoughts on, is our healthcare system broken? Actually, we should do that with our next guest, Dr. Ken Redcross, as well. That's another topic for you, Dr. Redcross.
Absolutely.
Right? However, we're going to talk about the flu. It's the beginning of the flu season. Dr. Redcross and I have talked about this a little bit in the past. We've talked about flu shots and vaccines. I want to just start by asking your thoughts about flu vaccines for those at risk. For example, those over 50 or over 60. Would you recommend them, or is that a completely personal thing?
You know what? I wouldn't say it's completely personal, Mark. And first, thank you so much for having me on again. I always love talking to you. So this is a very important question. So we know that there are some people that absolutely need their flu vaccine. You mentioned one group, those who are 65 years of age and older, but also those who are younger. We know that you can be 6 months of age and higher in order to get the flu shot. But those who have chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension. So in other words, other states when we know that the immune system is affected. But last year, Mark, we had a big challenge with that strain of the flu. So it's one that this year you want to really think about getting the flu shot, as it looks as if it's going to be a similar strain. But once again, it can be very personal for some, but you want to make sure you speak to your physician about it and make sure you're getting that protection.
And you have a gaggle of kids, at least two, I think, right?
Right? I do. Twins, yes.
Twins. So have they gotten their shot yet?
Yeah, absolutely. This year, and I should say this to everyone out there. Look, I haven't always been one that says that you just get the flu shot each and every year knee-jerk, especially back in 2001 when the swine flu was going around and the flu vaccine wasn't helping. But I knew last year we had over 174 pediatric deaths, and 80% of them, Mark, didn't get their flu shot. And I was so sorry to hear those numbers, and it was something that I thought was increasingly important to make sure that my kids were in fact vaccinated.
Absolutely. I get it. My wife has gotten hers. I have not had one in 5 years. Mm-hmm. I've also not had the flu in 5 years.
Right.
And
right.
I try to be careful. I wash my hands and things like that, and we're going to talk about that kind of thing. First, is there a way of preventing the flu?
You hit the nail right on the head there, Mark. You're right, and that's the reason why you haven't had to get your flu vaccines in the past 5 years, because hand washing is the number one thing that you have to do. Because lots of times you'll touch these surfaces that you don't even think about it, these hard surfaces that can still harbor the flu. Someone maybe sneezed or wiped something there, and you rub your eyes or your mouth or some place that can be a portal for entry. So it always starts at hand washing, and I mean really hand washing. Number one, washing your hands long enough. I always heard that adage when they sing happy birthday to me. Mm-hmm. Then the second thing is make sure you're washing under your fingernails as well, not just to put your fingers under the water and kind of get out of the bathroom. You really want to make sure you give yourself a really good hand washing, sudsing up a little bit so that you make sure you're clean.
Using an antibacterial soap or not?
Well, yes. All right, so that's another good question. So you prefer soap and water. Soap and water is the best, but look, we're all on the go a lot. I know it's difficult, so some of those antibacterial kind of material or what have you that you can squeeze onto your hand, they're good too, about 98% effective, but you want good and old-fashioned soap and water. That's always the best. And
also to me, our bodies get acclimated. Or actually the bacterias get acclimated to these soaps. So I only use the gels. You and I are going to meet at a convention in a few weeks, about 3 weeks.
Right.
And I always carry some there because I'm going to meet 387 people, right, in a day. And so I do use it there, but at home I don't, because I just don't want I don't think that the bacteria. I just think that it's going to I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
We'll kind of get a little bit used to, or
yeah, exactly.
Resistance.
The create. That's exactly right. Exactly.
And I love
right.
how you thought about that, Mark. That's very well thought out, because you're right. When we meet at this conference next week, we're going to be shaking hands all day long. But when you're home and in your own confines and so forth, you're right. The bacteria doesn't have a chance to kind of get that resistance and become smart to not understand that we're trying to kill it. So I actually love how you thought through that process. I think that's really good.
I thought through it almost all the way, too. Thanks for saving me there.
You did. You absolutely did.
Somebody told me the other day that the family pet, dog or cat, while they don't get the flu, they can carry the germs because you sneeze or you, it's on their coat and they come and cuddle with somebody who's sick. Is that true, too?
Absolutely. You're right. They don't give it to us directly as a vector. We call that in medicine. So, no, they're not a direct vector. But, yeah, and it depends on if you have a long-haired, like, for instance, I have 2 dogs and a cat here. Now, the dogs that I have are short-haired, but even still, it could be on their coat as well, and then you pet them and hug them, and next thing you know, once again, it's that hand-washing thing when you rub your eyes again and you expose yourself to something like that. But, yeah, your pet can be a source, in a sense, of passing the flu along to you as well.
Wait, you have purse dogs? You didn't.
Look, I'm going to call them my wife. Okay, they're my wife's dogs. Let's say that. They're not mine, guys. I'm still a tough guy.
All right, you got it. Let's talk about something when you do have the flu or think you're going to have the flu.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, I'm gonna go into work and just do my job the best I can because I don't want to lose a day of pay.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. Look, let's think about what the flu can do to us because sometimes no matter what we do, we hand wash, we avoid people, but we still come down with the symptoms, as you're saying. So the flu lasts about 3 to 7 days. We're familiar with the symptoms: fevers, chills, body aches. So in those first 2 days, those are the important days for us to get ready because we know we're coming down with something. So, it's important to think of it almost as the do's and the don'ts. And one of the things that you don't want to do is go to work. I tell patients, look, if you feel like you're coming down with something or maybe you shouldn't go to work, usually, Mark, that's kind of your gut telling you shouldn't go and don't go into work. And it's the same for our kids as well. Should our kids start to kind of change their behavior a little bit, you see that they're kind of becoming a little more lethargic, you have to keep them home from school as well. It's extremely important because we don't want to spread our workplace and also our schools to potentially the flu as well.
But a lot of people don't do that, and they may, I've seen people in offices wearing masks. Mm-hmm. Is that a good idea?
Well, look, that's another thing that I always tell patients too. Look, if you feel like you have to go with a mask, work from home. Most bosses or what have you understand that they don't want their workforce to kind of go down either. So they probably would prefer that you work from home as opposed to the mask. Now, towards the end of the flu, you can really start to feel better, but have some kind of what we call a post-bronchitic cough, meaning if you still have a little tickle and you're not necessarily sick and maybe not highly infectious, but you want to protect others from the respiratory droplets, that's the only time to where I think the mask is sort of a benefit there at that point when you're kind of on the tail end of this thing, but not when you're in the throes of it or you're coming down with your symptoms within that first 48 hours.
We've talked about hand washing now. We've talked about possibly staying home from work. What about avoiding people who appear to be hacking and coughing and sneezing?
Yeah, that becomes important as well. And even if you feel like you're coming down with symptoms and you're around people, you want to practice that, what we call kind of that vampire cough. You know how a vampire kind of lifts their cape to where you want to kind of cough or sneeze into the crook of your arm. Because we know that when you cough or when you sneeze, you're really sending up to 2,000 virus-laden particles to someone. And they only have to be about 6 feet away in order for you to kind of get those on you. And that's not that far when you think about it. The other thing, too, Mark, you and I always talk about kind of different ways of healing. And one of the things you can utilize, which is extremely important within that first 48 hours, is a homeopathic remedy called oscillococcinum. And I mention this one in particular because the important thing is that there's data behind it that has been shown to decrease the severity and the duration of flu-like symptoms. And so that's something you want to do within that first 48-hour window, especially for your kids, too. As long as your kids are 2 years of age and older, oscillococcinum is fine for them. And the good thing is, Mark, it's non-drowsy, which I love this time of year.
Absolutely. What company makes that?
It's made by a company called Boiron, B-O-I-R-O-N. Yeah, they're a French company.
Right.
It's funny. It seems like everyone in Europe is always ahead of us. They've been using oscillococcinum for decades, and we're just kind of getting it over the past few. So it's good that patients already know about it. They live by it, so it's pretty good.
I know it's available at health food stores and Whole Foods because I bought it at both places. I've used it myself.
Also available at CVS and a lot of the regular drugstores now, too. So it's becoming a lot more mainstream. But if we think about ways of healing everyone, let's recognize that a prescription isn't always the cure-all to make us feel better.
And also, we should point out that with CVS joining Aetna, with them merging, you'll get your insurance and your nutraceuticals all at the same time.
Great point, Mark.
Our guest is Dr. Ken Redcross. Dr. Redcross has been a frequent guest here at Late Night Health. We always enjoy having him here. His website is drredcross.com, drredcross.com. We're going to take some time out. We'll come back and speak with Dr. Redcross some more. And maybe even mention his book as Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn. Join us at latenighthealth.com. latenighthealth.com.
Welcome to Guide to the Soul. This is Robert Clancy. You are a beautiful masterpiece of celestial art. God sculpted your body, painted your portrait, and forged your blessed soul from the stardust. As with any masterwork, you may weather with age or get damaged a bit along the way. But doesn't that add to your beauty and mystique? Don't ever change who you are. You're loved and cherished in heaven just the way you are. Of all the challenges you've faced in life, you can be only made better for them. The greatest masterworks on earth have all been ravaged by the tests of time, only to become more revered in their inherent beauty. Always know you're one of God's masterworks meant to shine in that same way.
For more inspiration from Robert Clancy, visit guidetothesoul.com or go to the Moments with Robert page on latenighthealth.com.
The stigma around mental health disorders and suicide is still very strong in our culture. It's an uncomfortable topic for many of us, and yet it's something we can't afford to ignore, according to Dan Shuck, the author of A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups. Last month, the CDC released a study that reports suicide rates went up more than 30% in half the states since 1999. A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups, takes a new approach to addressing mental illness. The book playfully explores pessimism versus optimism to find balance, manage stress, and enjoy life. The book uses humor to provide an opportunity to determine the fullness of our own glass and how to apply it to our daily lives. Donations from the proceeds of the book will be made to a Glass Half Question fundraising campaign for the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, a children's book for grown-ups, is available from Amazon.com, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble. For more information, visit www.glasshalfquestion.com.